here we go. So my next review is ready, and this one is devoted to the Onda V812. This tablet is in many aspects identical to the Onda V972. The difference is it's 8 inches 1024 by 768 pixels IPS screen instead of 9.7 inches IPS retina screen of the Onda V972. Of course, Onda V812 is more lightweight, it's lighter and it's more compact. Also, it has the different frontal camera. In Onda V812 it's 0.3 megapixels camera compared to the 2 megapixels camera in the Onda 972. But the back camera is the same, it's 5 megapixels camera with autofocus. Also, Onda V812 has a smaller battery, of course. In different sources the battery capacity is different, but mainly it's from 4.5 thousand mAh to 4.8 thousand mAh. The capacity is good enough, but I repeat, I'm not sure about the real capacity. According to the dimensions of this battery, it should be around 4.5 thousand mAh capacity. In all the other aspects, the tablets are virtually identical. So Onda V812 has a smaller and a bit simpler screen, and of course it's faster because of the lower resolution of the screen. As well as Onda V972, this tablet also has 2 GB of random access memory. It's DDR3, it has 16 GB of flash memory, it has Quad Core Cortex A7 Allwinner A31 on board with the frequency 1008 MHz, and it also has the perfect GPU. It's PowerVR SGX544MP2. It's dual core GPU with 8 logic cores, so-called, with 8 texture units. So it's very powerful, especially for this resolution. It's not the retina resolution. Onda V812 has comparatively low resolution, 1024 by 768 pixels. So for this resolution, GPU should be very powerful and it should show perfect results. So now let's take a look at the box of this tablet. The box is virtually identical to the box of the V972. It's only a bit smaller, of course. So you may see the picture of the tablet, the photo of this tablet here, the technical specs here. Nothing very special. Another set of technical specs on the left side of this box. The thickness of this tablet is identical to the Onda V972 and is equal to 9.8 millimeters. Also, this tablet has Android 4.1 on board from the factory. And now it's time to take a look inside this box. The box is rather hard, but it's not as hard as some other boxes of the tablet. So it protects the tablet well, but not perfectly, I would say. And as you can see, there is a rather short but thick data cable inside. There is a standard charger. It's 2500 milliamperes, 5 volts charger, as you can see. Also, there is an adapter for this charger, because it comes with a Chinese plug, and there is a documentation in Chinese and nothing else. As you can see, no OTG cable, no headphones, no HDMI cable, so if you need them you should buy them separately. So here is the tablet. As you can see, I received the white version of this tablet. It's very similar to the Onda V972 again. There is an 8 inches IPS screen on the frontal panel and 0.3 megapixels frontal web camera. And that's all, nothing else here. On the back panel there is a 5 megapixels camera with autofocus, which is identical to the camera of Onda V972, and it has rather good quality, I should say. Also there is a protector installed, and it's very good. And there is a model number, serial number, made in China sign, 16 gigabytes version, and the name of the manufacturer. That's it. On the left side there is a speaker and there is a headphones plug, and also, as you can see, the back panel, as well as in the Onda 972, is made from metal, which is good. On the right panel there are two hardware buttons. This is the power button and this is the home button. This is the micro SD slot, microphone, micro USB and mini HDMI. Unfortunately, as well as in Onda V972, there is no special port for the charger, and there is no volume rocker as well. The build quality of this tablet is perfect, I would say, absolutely no problems here. Also, I can see the screws here, so the tablet is built very well. Now it's time to turn the tablet on. And first, as always, let's take a look at the screen. The brightness of the screen is rather good. The max brightness is very high, so you may use this tablet under the direct sun. The minimum brightness is maybe a bit too high also, but it's good enough actually. The average brightness is good enough for most of the purposes for this tablet. The screen has a perfect viewing angles because it's an IPS screen. Also, the contrast is great, no dead pixels, no flares, so the screen is actually very good until you compare it with the screen of Onda V972. First, it has a substantially higher pixels density, and I would say I like the colors of Onda V972 more than the colors of this tablet. So until you compare it with the Retina tablet, the screen of Onda V812 is quite good. But it's not as good as the Retina screens. Now let's take a look at the settings of this tablet. Again, as you can see, this tablet has a Wi-Fi module and no Bluetooth module, and of course no GPS. nothing very special here. All the settings are identical to the Onda V972. Again, there is an intelligent backlight and smart color options. You can set the accelerometer coordinate systems, you can set the font size, and of course the brightness. Storage. This tablet has 2 GB of memory for the programs and another 11.24 GB for the user's data. So the total amount is 16 GB of memory. And of course you may install the micro SD card and USB storage via the OTG cable. The battery is, as I already said, it's about 4,500 mAh, and the battery life is average, I would say, in this tablet. It's about 4.5 hours under load with the average brightness and the Wi-Fi on, and in the reading mode it's up to maybe 5.5 to 6 hours, so it's not so perfect. Now, the languages. As you can see, the list of languages is full in this tablet, so you may choose any language you like. And the firmware, it's Android 4.1.1, and as you can see the version number is 1.33, so the firmware is updated from the last time. I tested Onda V972 with the firmware version 1.32, and a couple of days ago Onda released the next firmware 1.33, and I updated both tablets with this firmware. I would say the stability is better in this firmware. Actually, I now have no problems with stability on both of these tablets. Now let's check the touch screen. And this tablet has also 10 points multi-touch screen. Despite it's only 8 inches and most of such tablets have only 5 points multi-touches, but Onda V812 has 10 points multi-touch, which is of course good. I don't think it's very necessary, of course. In most cases you don't need more than 3 points multi-touch, but as a rule 10 points multi-touch are a bit better by the technical specs than the 5 points multi-touches. Also, let's take a look at the system information. So, as you can see, 1658 megabytes of random access memory total. The actual amount is of course 2048 megabytes, and the amount of free memory at the moment is 1254 megabytes, which is of course quite good. So that's it. Now let's test the touchscreen in details. The touch screen is quite good, I would say, absolutely no problems. The latest tablets, as a rule, have no problems with the touch screen, so this tablet is also quite good in this respect. Now let's check the Wi-Fi signal. And again, as well as the Onda V972, this tablet shows the signal at the level of minus 45 dBm, which is the average result, but I believe it has a limit at this level and it just doesn't show the higher level of the signal. In reality, there are no problems with the Wi-Fi signal, so I am quite able to work with this tablet without any problems. Now let's check the root. And as you can see, the tablet is rooted. Unlike the previous firmware version 1.32, this firmware 1.33 is rooted out from the factory. So to root your tablet you just have to flash the latest firmware and then the tablet will be rooted already. That's good. Okay, now it's time to check the internet. So this tablet has a much lower screen resolution. Actually it's 4 times lower screen resolution than the previously tested Onda V972, so of course it should be faster in such disciplines. So as you can see, it's rather fluent. No problems here. So it's okay. Now it's time to check the YouTube.
I was 13 when I first got access to a computer. My parents bought me a Macintosh in 1984 when I was 8 years old. I was in 6th grade.
I learned to code in college, freshman year, first semester of Intro to Computer Science.
I wrote a program to play tic-tac-toe.
I think it was pretty humble beginnings. I think the first
To the person who has stole the spotlight here at the Daytona 500. That's a Danica Patrick.
Another female jump. Yeah, have they? No. You know it's going to be scary, but you know you're going to be okay. That's all that matters. You'll be okay.
You know, most girlfriends don't have to have this talk with their boyfriends.
It's all you, honey.
I believe you.
Okay. You don't have to jump if you don't want to.
count down to 0. If you choose not to jump, I'm totally fine with you not jumping. 5, 4, 3, 1.
This is carried out by this hatchet, which lowers down right through the center of the Oreo, and then I've got this floss to kind of keep the creamy Oreo halves from sticking to the hatchet blade.
Something I need to tell you.
Like what?
I have Taylor Swift in a big coffin.
Rowdy's in the sewage.
Okay. Dudes, you ought to put both your balls in a cup and then toast it, so your nerves get...
So as you can see, all the YouTube videos play quite well. Now let's continue with the Google Maps. As you can see, the Google Maps work also quite well. Now let's continue with the Play Store. The Play Store in this tablet is about identical to the Play Store in Onda V972. So the amount of compatible programs is about the same. And you can also use the programs like Market Helper to improve the compatibility. Or you can also install the custom firmware. There are several custom firmwares already, both for Onda V812 and Onda V972. In all these custom firmwares, the market compatibility is also improved. But actually, as you can see, most of the programs, it's about 90%, are compatible out of the box in the stock firmware. So actually, no problems here. And now it's time to check the performance. Sure, the performance should be even higher than for the Onda V972. And first, as always, let's take a look at the Antutu benchmark. I run this benchmark at the default frequency, it's 1008 MHz, as you can see, and the result is 13,183 points. It's a really good result. This result is higher than for any Rockchip 3066 tablets, and it's especially high in terms of three-dimensional graphics. As you can see, the results of 3D graphics here is 4,952 points. It's highest results among all the tablets I tested so far. So this result is absolutely perfect and very good. And all the other subtests, as you can see, also show the good results. The random access memory and CPU tests show about the same results as for the Onda 972, and the SD card write and read also show about the same test, but the two-dimensional and three-dimensional graphics tests show the higher results because of the much lower screen definition in this tablet. So the final result is very good, as you can see. Now let's run the quadrant. I already tested it, and here is the result. It's 3,226 points. It's about 200 points higher than the result of Onda 972, but compared to the Rockchip 3066, for instance, these results are about 1,000 points lower. So it's not perfect, but it's because of this test. The quadrant is rather obsolete, and there are no new versions of this test for about 6 months, so maybe I'll stop using it in the near future. Now let's run the Vellamo. And here is the result. It's a bit higher than for the Onda V972, but the result of HTML5 should be a bit higher. In the latest firmware, this result dropped by about 100 points, so it should be around 1,300 points, but I only received 1,182 points here. This result is rather average. It's lower than for the Rockchip 3066, but it's higher than, for instance, for the Actions ATM 7025 and 7029. So that's it. Now it's time to run the three-dimensional tests. First of all, as always, it's a nano mark, and here is the result. As you can see, 59.2 frames per second. It's the maximum possible result actually, so this test is too easy. It's too simple for this tablet, I would say. So it doesn't show the real performance of this tablet. It just shows the maximum frame rate. So it's 59.2 frames per second. Now let's run the benchmark AG. As you can see, this time it is much more fluent, and actually the results are more than 2 times higher than for the Onda 972, but still they are a bit lower than for the Rockchip 3066 tablets with the same screen resolution. This test, like MHz MP4, better than the PowerVR GPUs. But the actual result is still quite good. As you can see, it's 31.6 frames per second. And earlier I even received the results around 34 frames per second, but it's still a little bit a lower result than for the Rockchip 3066, but it's the only test which shows the lower results. Now let's run the GL benchmark. Here is the results. So the fill rate in off-screen mode is 817 megapixels. As you can see, it's a good result, despite it's not the real result for this tablet. The real result should be at least 2.4 gigapixels, so it should be much higher, but this test only shows such result, and they still are a bit better than for the MHz. And the most interesting results are for the Egypt HD and Egypt Classic. Egypt Classic in both cases, in native screen and even in the off-screen mode, which is the Full HD resolution, shows the identical result, and it's about 58 frames per second. So the Egypt Classic is also too simple for this tablet. That's what I have to say. And the Egypt HD shows 24 frames per second in the native resolution. So it's the first tablet among those I tested which is capable to run this test in the native resolution rather fluently. So it's a perfect result, and it's a much better result than for the Rockchip 3066, for instance. And now it's time to test the Epic Citadel. As you can see, this test is absolutely fluent. It was even fluent on the Onda V972, so of course it will be fluent here. And now let's run the benchmark. And the result is 51.8 frames per second in the high performance mode. And we can also run this benchmark in the high quality mode. And the result is almost the same. As you can see, 49.5 frames per second. And it's a perfect result, of course. The test runs absolutely fluently. As you can see, absolutely no problems. It's even faster than on the Onda 972, and it was quite predictable. So now we can test some games. Of course, all the simple games will run absolutely without any problems. Bad Piggies and other two-dimensional games will quite fluent even on the Onda 972, and of course they will be fluent here. Absolutely perfectly fluent. And of course this game will be absolutely fluent. Again, no problems at all. Now let's continue with the more advanced three-dimensional games. So this game is absolutely fluent and playable, as you can see. So let's continue with the next game, and let it be the dead trigger. So the dead trigger is also quite fluent and playable. Now let's continue with the Juggernaut. So as you can see, the Juggernaut is perfectly fluent and it looks absolutely great. Now let's continue with the Eternity Warriors. The alternative orders, as you can see, is also absolutely fast and fluent, but there are again some problems with the picture. The monsters are invisible except for the bosses. So you can play this game, but because of the bad drivers, I think it's not so very playable. But I'm quite sure it will be corrected in the future firmware of this tablet. So the game runs fluently, but the picture is imperfect in this case. Now let's run the bubble horizon. And in this game I've chosen the maximum quality of the picture. Let's take a look. As you can see, the quality is very high. So let's try to run this game with such a quality. And as you can see, even with such high quality of the pictures, with shadows, with high definition textures, the game is still playable. It's quite fluent, so you can play it. And as you can see, it's fluent. Of course, with the lower quality of the picture, it will be even better. Okay, now let's run the bubble horizon. And in this game I've chosen the maximum quality of the picture, as you can see. So let's try to run this game with such a picture quality. And as you can see, even with the maximum quality of the picture, this game is quite playable on the Onda V812. So this tablet is almost perfect for the gaming because of its very powerful GPU. You can play virtually any of the modern games with a good picture quality and with a perfect frame rate. So with the lower picture quality, of course, it will be even faster. And the last game for today is the Temple Run 2. Let's try it. And of course, this game is also playable. I've chosen also the maximum quality of the picture. As you can see, the picture quality is the best, and the game is perfectly playable, of course. So now it's time to make some conclusions about this tablet. As you can see, it's very good. It has the powerful internals, so it has 2 GB of random access memory and Cortex A7 Quad Core CPU with a very powerful GPU. It's a Dual Core PowerVR SGX544 with 8 Texel pipelines, which is about 1.5 times more powerful than the GPU of the iPad 2, for instance, and it's almost as powerful as the GPU of the 3rd generation of iPad. So for this screen resolution, this GPU is more than powerful enough. It's much more powerful than the Melee 400's MP4, and of course it's even more powerful than all the other GPUs. It's about twice as powerful as the NVIDIA Tegra 3, and only several of the modern GPUs may compete with this GPU. So it's very good tablet for the games, as you can see. Also it has a good IPS screen, it's very bright. The small drawback of the screen is that the brightness can be lowered for the acceptable level for the complete darkness without additional programs. I can show you this program. For instance, the screen filter can be used to lower the brightness below the normal minimum level. Also, you can use the full screen on this tablet, as well as for the other tablets with root, as you can see. So it's also very good variant. Also this tablet has 16 GB of flash memory. The only serious drawback maybe is its battery life, which is about 4 hours for the games and up to the 6 hours under the low load. So the battery life is not so bad, but it's not perfect. There are some other 8-inch tablets with a better battery life, but still it's not so bad. Also, the frontal camera maybe is not so good, it's only 0.3 megapixels, but the back camera is very good for the tablet. It's 5 megapixels with autofocus and with a rather good picture quality. The build quality is perfect, absolutely no problems here. So actually, if you want the fast and nice 8-inch tablet, the Onda V812 may be your choice. Also, there is a little drawback. This tablet is rather expensive, unfortunately, but maybe the prices will go down soon. So that's it. As you can see, the other details about this tablet you may find in the description to this video. For instance, the links to the newest firmwares. By the way, I test the tablet with the firmware version 1.33, but there is even newer version, 1.35 is already released. I unfortunately had no time to test it, but it should be even better than this release. Okay, and now let me announce my next reviews. First, I'm going to test the new Rockchip 3188, of course, and I think I've chosen the tablet I'm going to test. It will be the Cube U30 GT2, the second generation of the famous tablet, with the Quad Core newest system on chip and with the Full HD Plus screen. So this tablet will be tested in about 1 month, I think. And I'm going to test several interesting phones. I'm glad to tell you that Spemall now sells the mobile phones based on Android. I asked them about it for many times, and now at last they have several very interesting phones in stock. So I'm going to test phones like G1, G2 and G3. G1 is a budgetary phone with a very low price, only about $60, but as far as I know it should be very interesting for such a price. G1 is based on the MediaTek MTK 6515. It's a single-core Cortex A9 1.0 GHz system on chip with a PowerVR 531 Ultra GPU. Also it has a capacitive multi-touch screen, 480 by 320 pixels. So for $60 this phone should be very good. And G2 and G3 are more advanced phones with 1 GB of random access memory and more advanced IPS screens. Both these phones are based on the MediaTek MTK 6577, which is the Dual Core Cortex A9 1.0 GHz CPU. And later I'm going to test several even more advanced phones based on MediaTek MTK 6589. This system on chip has 4 cores Cortex A7 1.2 GHz and much more advanced GPU. It's PowerVR SGX544MP2. It's a single core GPU, so it's a bit less powerful version of the GPU installed in the currently tested Onda V812, but it still should be quite powerful for the phones with a low screen resolution. And I'm not sure exactly which phone I'm going to test, but almost for sure it will be the Giant G4, the advanced version with 2 GB of random access memory, 32 GB of flash memory, and 3000 mAh battery. And I think it will be a couple of other phones. Maybe it will be the iNew 2000s, which is 5.8 inches phone. It's the phone with a very large screen. And maybe it will be THL W8 with a 5 inches HD IPS screen. And actually that's it for today, so thank you for attention.